You can't. Welcome, welcome everyone to Reset to Healthier Relationships. Sunday nights at 9. I am Coach Glenda. We have part 2 tonight. 2, how can you still love them when it's not long enough or wet enough? Would it still be worth it? All right. Rufus and I have created this format as a safe place to discuss trials, struggles, and victories in past and present relationships. This is not a one-size-fits-all open discussion. There is no topic too minor or major that we cannot discuss. We encourage everyone to participate and speak their truth. This is a non-judgmental zone, so talk as much or as little as you would like. I am Coach Glenda, and I am here with my course manager, Mr. Carpenter, and I will allow him to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm incognito tonight. My name ain't Rufus Carpenter tonight. My name is somebody else tonight because some of the things that we got to say tonight, I'm putting on sunglasses because my kids or my parents or somebody may be looking, and I don't want to be identified with a nice subject. So I'm incognito. Once again, hey, welcome everybody to Sunday night at 9. We're happy to have you here. I'm sitting in for Rufus Carpenter tonight, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He come from a large family where they never had enough. It was 14 kids and the 2 parents, which was 16 people in a 3-bedroom house, and with 1 bathroom. And occasionally he had to sleep with his siblings or 4 other siblings. So he told me, if you know anything about occasional bedwetter, you know what it is for the essence of the human connection. His story didn't stop there. He was married 27 years to the same lady. And if you know a thing about being married, you learn about compromise, you learn about communication, commitment, forgiveness, and trust. These are the things necessary for a great marriage. However, these are also the things that deepen the understanding of human connection. His story still didn't stop there. He joined the United States Army and he was in 20 years and he was trained to be an equal opportunity race and relationship leader, where he had the responsibility for dealing with any relationship issue within their unit, Army unit. He was the first person on the scene, and then he would do what's called the intake form, and from there he would determine what kind of resources had to be allocated to fix that problem. So tonight he's on board to talk about the male perspective and also about relationships in a diverse environment. Once again, his name is Rufus Carpenter. Okay, Glenda, turn it back over to you.
Okay, you guys, we are, like I said before, we are doing a part 2 from last week. And we're going to do a brief recap. Last week, we talked about understanding sexual compatibility. We talked about the various, let's see, couple to couple, and the influence by numerous factors, including physical, emotional, and physiological elements, understanding and acknowledging these differences in the first step towards finding mutual satisfaction. And if we want to do a recap on that topic, understanding sexual compatibility, Mr. Carpenter, if you want to shed a little bit of light on that topic from last week, understanding sexual compatibility. If you want to chime in on that topic on sexual compatibility.
Okay. Last week, at first, I got to start by telling everybody I appreciate you from last week. Last week, you were a great audience. You did an excellent job. You talked about a difficult subject in a tasteful manner, and I got to commend you. You did an excellent job. Everybody made sure it was done right because we are a public forum where anybody can get on. And once again, our format is that you have 20 of your girlfriends and you in one of your houses, and you're in their living room and everybody's sitting around and everybody's talking. You might have a glass of wine or two or whatever you drink. And this is a chance for you to get out and talk about relationships. And the subject we had last week was such a touching subject, because how can you still love them when it's not long and or hard? Oh, I messed up. wet, wet enough, would it be worth it? See, we starting already. We starting already. So therefore, that's a topic. Let me get my glasses off. Let me get right. I'm sorry. I got to do it the right way so I can see something now. All right. Now, so last week we talked about it. We started with sexual compatibility. And sexual compatibility, we said that there has to be some type of your norm, whatever your norm is for your couple. Everybody don't view sexual preference the same way. What's norm for you may not be norm for me, or may not be norm for Glenda. You and your partner have to discuss and figure out what's norm for you. And also, we talked about it's important that you communicate. We talked about that you have to try some new things. Try some new things. Matter of fact, one lady said last week that if for instance, if you like oral and your partner don't, she said break out some whipped cream. And so, and then we even talked about some different techniques and how to make that happen. Glenda even brought up a point: if it's not long enough, she gave some suggestions on what you need to do and how you can make those things work better. So we wanted you to realize that no matter what it is, it's good to open up and talk. And also, Glenda, you want me to do the communication part, or you have got that part? You want me to talk about
I can do the communication.
You can do it. All right, let me turn it over to you, Glenda.
Okay. The next topic that we talked on last week, we talked about the role of communication. In regards to the role of communication, we talked about being open and honest in your communication about your sexual needs. The desire, about your desires is very essential. Many couples avoid these conversations due to it being embarrassing and the fear of rejection. We want to make sure that when you have special needs that need to be met, you need to make sure that you are very open and honest about them, because you want to make sure that both parties are satisfied when it comes to your sexual needs and your sexual preferences. Because when it comes to when it's not wet enough or when it's not long enough, and you want your needs to be met, you can bring in toys, and you have to maybe change positions. And when it's not wet enough, you may want to implement maybe lubricants to make sure those needs are being met. So you have to talk about those things. And also you have to make sure that when you communicate, you have to make sure that, you are communicating to the point that you can have a deeper connection with your partner, so you can, solidify that intimacy with them. So as I just want to reiterate that your communication with your partner is always important when it comes to your intimacy. You don't feel like you're going to be rejected if you tell them, maybe we should try this position, or maybe we should, bring in a dildo, or maybe if we should try, bring in some KY jelly. Don't feel like, it's an embarrassing, like it's embarrassing, or like you're going to be rejected, like, oh, something's going on with you. No, because if you really love the person or you really care about them, they should be able to take heed to it, because you really care about them. And if you're trying to be intimate with them, you're being forthcoming with this information because you really love them, and you're trying to have a deeper, intimate connection with them. And, it's very important, especially if you want to continue to have, you want to come back to have sex with them again. And that's just, my take on the whole ordeal. Mr. Carpenter, do you want to chime in or piggyback on what I've said?
Well, you said some great things, Glenda, and I think you kind of rounded out, everybody got a great understanding of what it is to communicate, because the communication is the key. The only thing that I want to add to what you said, sometimes communication is not all verbal. Sometimes there are nonverbal cues that you can get from people. Sometimes is being an active listener and your partner, especially when you're in the midst, or when you're in the act, or when you're in, if you notice that your partner, when you touch this a certain way, that your partner frowns, or is not getting any pleasure out of it, then that might be something that you might have talk to your partner about. And sometimes I notice that one partner may have more experience than the other partner. And if that's the case, then you want to discuss that, because sometimes the fear of being overzealous, and sometimes somebody says, well, who taught you all? Wait a minute, back up. I thought you was this and instead of that. So you just got to figure out how to address those things. That's all I need to bring out.
Well, I do want to say, now, I believe that everybody has a past, and that should not be, you shouldn't be intimidated by your partner's past, whether they are more experienced than you or not.
I remember when I was younger, that was an issue for me. I had a hard time dealing with that because, when I was younger, and we're going to talk about this, the generation gap before we end the night. But when I was younger, I thought I would meet somebody. Meeting people young like me. And when they turned out to be a Six Flag ride, I said, whoa, somebody older than their years. So I had a hard time dealing with that as a young man. That was it.
Why?
I thought the man was supposed to be the most experienced of the two.
Oh,
Back then, that's what I thought back then, but I realized I learned fast.
oh, okay. All right. Okay, moving on. All right. So the next topic that we covered was emotional intimacy and connection. All right. Often, all right, we have someone else coming in. All right. So emotional intimacy often plays a more significant role in the strength of a relationship than physical intimacy. Building a strong emotional connection can enhance physical experiences and compensate for any shortcomings in the sexual aspect of the relationship. So with that being said, let's see. I would say that sex is not everything. Your emotional connection is probably more important than your sexual connection, in my personal opinion. So regardless of whether it is long enough or wet enough, the emotional connection with your partner is far more greater than what the physical aspect of the sexual encounter could possibly be. And I really do believe in that overall, in my personal, in my personal opinion. Because with everything that's going on, I mean, you can get help for almost everything. Because like I said, if it's not wet enough, you can go to the store and get lubricant. If it's not, long enough, you can bring toys in the bedroom. So you can always seek professional help for any type of issue that you may have in a bedroom, especially, with today's technology and with medicine today. So in my personal opinion, the intimacy and the emotional connection is always important, because with the health issues that we have nowadays, with high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, and with just medication alone that affects our body, excuse me.
I think that's overflow. Somebody mute your mic if you're not speaking, please.
With the medication that doctors are prescribing now that affects our body, and it interferes with your sex drive. You never know how your medication today affects your sex life, and before you know it, you end up, you can't perform like you used to, and if you don't have intimacy, or you don't have an emotional connection with your partner, and then your sex life starts to decline, it's like, you know, you really don't have anything if you banked on your sex life. But you have to have an emotional connection with your partner that is more powerful, or that is more stronger than the sexual, the sexual connection. I would rather have a emotional and a more intimate, what is it, a more spiritual and emotional connection with my partner versus a sexual connection. Because after the sex goes away, what else do you have? Because 9 times out of 10, if you were banking on the sex, they may cheat or leave you. So in reality, you have to, weigh out your options. Mr. Carpenter.
Linda touched on a lot in what she just said. And Andre, before I say that, first, guys, everybody has a chance to talk in this arena here. We asked everybody to participate because Glenn and I are doing a lot of talking, and we want to hear your comments and how you weigh in on these topics. So feel free to jump in anytime you want to. Glenda said some great things, and Andre posted that it may be gender bias when you're talking about the intimacy side and the emotional side of a relationship. And Andre, if you want to answer, you want to comment on that before I weigh in, or you just want me to go and weigh in?
Um, I could be wrong, but a lot of times when you think about emotional connections, I guess, while that may be cute, I just don't see a guy getting that far to even fall in love on the emotions without the bedroom first.
Andre, you weren't here last week.
I must have missed a lot.
Yeah, you just told, if you was there last week, everybody's smiling there. You weren't here last week. Last week, the emotional end kind of won, was the king of the night. That was the big dog in the fight, was the emotional end. Because I even shared some things about emotions last week. And a lot of us on this line, I think that the sweet spot on our call is that age from 30 to 55. And if you're that age 30, 55, you've been through some stuff in your life. And Glenda said last week that we all have a past. And if you've been through some stuff, and if you had a few ups and downs, and you had a few relationships, and your heart has been open, and you really know what love is, and you've had a chance to really deeply love somebody, and somebody have touched your soul, and you had a soulmate, or you had someone that really was really important in your life and brought you to some emotional peaks in your life, emotional part is really a large part of a love and a relationship, or a human connection. Those positive emotional deposits you put in somebody, you invest in somebody, these are the things that take you long term in a relationship. These are the things that when you get old and gray and you lose your hair, and both women and men lose hair. So when you lose your hair, you don't have all the beauty that you had in your youth, or all the abilities you have in your youth. This is when those emotional deposits you had early on in a relationship carry you through. So the emotional part of it is very unique. And it can be just a look from across the room. You can look at your mate or your boo or your significant other across the room, and he or she knows it's time. He or she knows that as soon as everybody leaves my house, it's on and popping. It can be a certain touch. It could be, you guys could be looking at a movie, or looking at the TV, and he or she rub your leg and look in your eye. You don't even make it to the bedroom. You know, it's so much about intimacy. Those moments, you can be walking holding hands, and it just hit you. The emotional part of it is such a major part. As a matter of fact, some people can't have a sexual relationship without the emotions. Without the emotions, it's not a sexual act. It's not a sexual act happening. So a lot of foreplay is the conversation, the setting, the mood. These things are emotional. When you look at older people, when you look at real older people, and you figure yourself, these old people ain't doing jack. That's what you say to yourself. But you'll be surprised how that those earlier emotional deposits will have them doing some things you can't even do. And I'm gonna leave it like that because I could go on and on. When you're talking about the emotional stimuli and the things that can get you to where you need to go, a lot of times you ain't even gotta touch them and to have them get to that mountaintop.
Right.
Ladies on the line, somebody help me out. Am I right or wrong, ladies?
Well,
Definitely right.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Somebody will share.
You're right.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead, Glenda.
okay. I wanted to chime in to what you were saying in response to Andre's comment. The emotional connection is when you get old, like the comment that Angela had made about that older couple that she had met, or that the preacher was telling her about from last week, that they had fell asleep under the tree. We remember the story she was telling
I remember
last
very
week.
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. But it was like, for them to have been together for so long, and they had went to a picnic and they were together for so long, they fell asleep under the tree. But the one of the things I wanted to make mention tonight was the emotional and the love connection that you have as you grow old, is even when you, like you said, when your hair fall out and when your gas starts smelling like carcasses that's ran over in the street, and that you say you get diagnosed with cancer, that even when you can't have sex anymore, you still love the person enough to stay with them even when they can't have sex anymore. That's that type of intimacy, that love connection, that sex doesn't even matter anymore. That's why when you decide to get married, or you decide to say I do, you have to ask yourself, can I love this person even when even 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, will I still be able to love them as they change throughout the years, even if their body is afflicted and they can't perform like they used to? Will I still love them if the Lord, changed them? When they gain 15, 20, 45, 50 pounds? Those are the things you need to ask yourself, because sex is not everything. And you don't never know when something's going to happen to your partner's body or your body, whether it's internally or externally. And those are not the questions that you ask. And then in the chat, you did state young people seem to see sex as a sport. And you're exactly right, especially in their high school days and in their college days. They see sex as, oh, how much can I get? Or, I'm gonna get this one. And, they're doing they're having sex as they're trying to get that experience. They're not trying to settle down. They're trying to get that notch on their belt. They're just trying to, I'm just trying to, have it just to have it. They're not trying to have it to settle down and build a family. They're just doing it for, like you said, for sport. But as you get older and mature and you know what sex is all about, sex is for a reason. It's really made for people that are trying to build families. It's not for sport.
Oh, Glenda, here we go again, girl. Here we go again.
I mean, but like I said, this is not a one size fit all conversation.
Here we go again.
And that is my truth. And I said that in the beginning.
Well, let me share something Andre said, then I'll come back to that sport part. Okay, Andre said that unconditional love is what keeps people in that relationship long term, not so much the emotional deposits. And I have to differ with Andre first before I differ with you, Glenda. you got to realize something, Andre, and this is my truth, and somebody in the audience can help us out too. For you to have the unconditional love, it's got to come from somewhere. It's got to be some type of factors that intersect across with that unconditional love. And a lot of times, in my way of thinking, that's those positive emotional deposits. And those positive emotional deposits can be from anything from how you took care of a person, how you nurtured a person, and it could be the things you did, sexual, the intimate part of sex. It could be all these things that build the unconditional love. Because I believe in love at first sight. I do. But I believe, and this is me talking now, I didn't see this from no study. I believe unconditional love has to have something to be a part of. Unconditional love is great. I don't think you unconditional love in a vacuum. I think unconditional love is a result of some of those positive emotional deposits people put in your life. Anybody want to chime in on that part? Because that Andre made a statement was, and Glenda, read Andre's statement, please. Can you see it in the chat?
1 second. Which
Or you
one?
want to read it, Andre?
Which one?
The one he said about unconditional love.
I
Is,
had something. Well, Rufus.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. I didn't want to cut you off or whatever, but I had something to say on what you were saying on Andre. I agree with Andre and Glenda. I agree.
Hey, if you're not talking, can you cut your mic on mute, please? Because Glenn and I don't want to mute you. We want everybody to be able to speak, but we need to hear the conversation. Go ahead, Glenda. Go ahead, Sharon. You can go ahead and finish, Sharon.
Okay. Like I said, I agree with Glenda and Andre. I believe it's got to be something stronger first. I mean, something stronger to build on before just sex itself. I don't think it can hold a marriage. It's got to be that emotional stuff, but that comes with time. Because you were saying that you felt like in your statement, Rufus, I think you were saying something like the emotional attachment and whatever you feel like is there, that is there from the beginning. I don't think so. Because but to me, my opinion is when I meet someone or I have an interest in someone, my first attraction is either something about them or their looks or something. Because I don't know them, so how could I be trying to be emotionally attached with them? How could that had nothing to do with my attraction to that person from the beginning. Did that make sense?
It made sense. I understood what you said. I understood you said. In other words, it got to be something that draws you, and from there you build, and eventually you get to that point of emotional attachment. I understand that. That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
All right. Were you, Andre? You gonna read it, or Glenda? You gonna read Andre's chat so that way we can bring that out, because that's a valid point he made.
The comment about the unconditional.
Yes. Can you read it, please?
It says, it sounds as if we are saying unconditional love that may not necessarily be tied to emotions.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Because we want to hear we want to hear the audience take on that.
Yeah, I'd like to say something if I can.
Okay, who's speaking?
That?
This is Mitch.
Mitch,
how you doing, sir? Go ahead.
I'm doing great. I think that it has nothing to do with love or unconditional. It has everything to do with responsibility. When you start off having sex, it could be something like it'll steer you in the wrong way, and you say emotion. Most men don't have emotions like I think you're saying. My dad always told me. I have well, you don't need to know my background, but it has nothing to do with love. If you can find a definition for it, has everything to do with responsibility. And responsibility carry you through everything. If you don't have any responsibility, you don't take responsibility, you can hop from woman to woman to woman, and you can call it love. No such a thing as that. It's carrying responsibility. If you look at swans, they stay together forever. You look for wolves, they stay together forever. And it has everything to do with responsibility. I really kind of like taken back by when you say, I think long and wet. I don't even think those things come into play when you find someone you actually care about. Those things, work itself out. It's like Mother Nature. It's like the moon and stars coming together and the universe lining up. You got to realize that you have no control of that. So I think you're saying a lot of things. And me as a man, I don't get emotional. I don't get emotional. With my lady, we know that something has to happen. If she dressed up and she looked nice and I like the way she looked, it's my responsibility and it's her responsibility. So I hope I'm kind of making sense a little bit when I
Yes.
say men attack it from a different angle and women attack it from another angle. Most men are sometimes they're conquerors. They sleep with maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 women and they don't care. You may call it love, but it's not love. It's something else. And sometimes based on how he got started, he may have started at 15, 16, and he didn't have that fatherly love. And he just came off the rail and don't understand what it's all about. So that word love is it's like overreaching, so it's more or less of a responsibility.
Thank you.
Mitch, we appreciate you for bringing those comments. As a matter of fact, you touched on something very, very important. But since you brought it up, I can talk about it. I wasn't going to talk about it at first, but since you brought it up, I can talk about it. Mitch brought up a point that he was taught responsibility, and he's 100% correct because he sound like he's more than 30 years old. So I'm not going to ask how his age is, but if my generation, I think my generation is close to his generation. In my generation, we weren't taught sex like it is today. Sex today is more free. And that's when you said, Glenda, you said younger people now see it as a sport. In my generation, in my day, we weren't taught. We learned about sex from our uncles. And if we're fortunate enough to have older brothers that were 10 or 15 years older than us, we learned from our brothers. But mostly our uncles were the ones that taught us about sex and sexual encounters. And at the same time, we as boys were being taught by our uncles, and women were being taught by their moms or grandmoms, and it was told the opposite. They were told, "Don't have sex, don't like it. You can't like it. You have to be taught not to like it or not to show that you like it." And Mitch, you can help me out a little bit, Mitch, because I think you might know what I'm talking about a little bit. And they were taught not to like it. So back in those days, here's what men were taught. And guys, I'm gonna say it as raw as it was told to me back then. Back then, a man would lay down a woman, get a nut and carry his ass. That's
I believe it.
We're in the same age. We're the same age, practically almost same age.
Yeah.
We didn't grow up like that. You got different men. You got men that had just women in the family, and we feel that they was taught wrong because women are so emotional. Women whip the children. They would go off the end, and men bring stability. So we're in the same age range. Tell you the truth. And the bottom line is that my father, he was with us all the way until he passed away, and we was taught that emotions didn't exist because the man had to be ahead of the family. We didn't have uncles and all these other folks outside telling us what to do because it's confusing to a man. And like I was saying, when you got a guy just having sex, he don't know what he's doing. I mean, it's not love and it's not right. And I think women look at it as if you have sex with her. I mean, she feel that, oh, this is love. And actually, it's just a man that's been taught the wrong way. You got beta males. Beta males are men that was brought up with their moms, and they learn those emotions. And then you got these men we call like down low men. They don't have a clue. They're just doing something. So I never said that sex was a sport because sex isn't a sport. Those young guys, like I say, they're doing things and they just didn't have the right parents around. They grew up with their mothers. Their mothers triggered them and they kind of patterned themselves after them. I was with my father. I have 7 brothers, and we grew up. We didn't have kids until we was like I say 20, 21, 22. I think we was like virgins to like we were up to 20 because we understand the ramification of having sex too early. It's no such a thing as, oh, you in love, or people say you can't help who you fall in love with. That's not true. You can help who you fall in love with. It's still mental. It's all mental. But you're right about men thinking it's sports, but those are beta males. Women have to really find real men. But women choose these men, and when they choose these men, and these men make love to them, and it's like, I don't know, they may have a long penis, or they may be doing something that they like. It confuses the woman, and the woman think that she fall in love with the sex, and she don't fall in love with the man, and she get angry and she get emotional, and the man actually don't know what he just created or what he's done. So that's why it's a responsibility, and you have to have a conversation before you engage in that. Because I was with a woman, and I mean the sex wasn't good, but I had a responsibility to her, and I upheld my responsibility. It wasn't about going and get another woman. It was that what we did satisfied me. She was very she was very adverse, and she could she speak well. She liked traveling. She did a lot of things, and it just was my responsibility. But the bottom line is that women need to know there's beta males out there. There's men that jump around from women to women to women. Them are the wrong men. Man, you can't come to a man's house or to his apartment. You're really messing with the wrong men. And
That's right.
And the women knows it, but the women still fall for it. And then as the women get older and they age, they become less valuable, and then they fade out around they 50, 40, and 50, because young women take over and start the same cycle.
Yes.
Amen.
I need your autograph.
Amen.
I got something to say.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just curious about what he was saying as far as like when I grew up with older brothers, and I'm in the same age group, a little younger than Rufus. You know what I'm saying? So that man that was just talking. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Mitch. His name was Mitch.
Mitch, I didn't catch a lot of the stuff you were saying as far as, I mean, I didn't quite understand a lot of the stuff that you were saying as far as saying stuff about, okay, the responsibility part and the part about as far as men, started having sex when it was older and because they had responsibilities or they wanted to make sure they, provided for their family. I'd never seen that part of that life back in that day. Not because men wasn't no good, but that's just the way things were back then.
Well, you're right about some of it, but you got to remember when the feminist movement started, this is when you start seeing it. You remember when women were saying, oh, you don't need a man, you don't need a man. It was happening. And let me tell you, the reason why you didn't see it because you wasn't looking for it. You was looking for the wrong thing. You have to admit when you're wrong. It's all about responsibility. You're probably chasing some person that didn't want you, and you didn't realize it. But a lot of people keep chasing people and they don't want them. You have to take that. And you got to quit saying, oh, the man got to make so much money. The man shouldn't have to make so much money. All these good men you passed up because you thought that, they didn't make enough money or they didn't drive the right car. So you did see those men. You didn't pay no attention to those men. You paid attention to the wrong men. It could have been a drug dealer. Could have been the guys that run around and call themselves, I guess what, I don't know, thugs. But what I'm saying is that you saw those brothers, and because you was around a lot of brothers, doesn't mean they help you. Don't mean they train you. Like I say, they could have been like very emotional men, which act like women. So you have to be around real men to understand this. And by you saying that, that is a fact, But I can guarantee you that I'm sorry.
I'm disagreeing with that because,
That's okay.
I'm saying, I understand everybody has their own opinion or whatever, but I feel like you should use like either an I statement or in general, as far as society statement, because I really grew up.
Well, I can do that. Apologize. I don't mean.
Oh, no, I didn't take it really personal because everything you said was wrong.
Okay.
It's really for me. But what I'm trying to say is, at the age that I was speaking of, I wasn't even old enough to have sex. So, but with being around older siblings, I learned. I watched as,
Okay,
I learned.
how old are you?
I'm
how old are you?
60.
Oh, well, you older than me. You're way older than me.
Okay. That explains it.
Somebody else
And
is gonna say something.
there's a difference.
Your generation, the 60 generation, that 60 generation, I think that's the baby boomer. You had it the best, but you didn't realize you had the best. You know,
Yeah,
that's when you had, that's when welfare came along and they was kicking
I,
and things like that. But all I'm saying is that there's good men out there, but you passing them by because they don't look right to you. You don't see them. If you was my woman, and you know, and we had a union, we made a union. We don't even have to get married, and I belong to you, and you belong to me. You're my responsibility. You're my responsibility, and I'm going to make sure that things go the way they're supposed to go. How
But
many
then if you
men
don't
have
make sure of that, you'd have married that person.
that was
wouldn't
like
you?
that? And my brothers are the same. So we believe in that. I'm
Let's
sorry.
let's share. Somebody else was going to say something. Somebody else
Oh,
was
I'm
going to
sorry.
chime in. Let the other
yeah,
person
Miss,
chime in.
yeah, Mr. Carpenter.
Go
I
ahead.
agree. I agree a lot with Mitch. If you're in something for so long and you think it's right, then you do lose out on a lot. Instead of it being love, is lust. Instead of being treated like you really should have, you settle for less because you don't know. But I agree with him. If we kind of hold on, watch, and pray, and don't settle for when you don't have to. I agree with him. There are some good people out there. But if you just settle for what comes your way and thinking along the line of money instead of the heart and the blessings in being treated right, it's a big difference. So I agree a lot with a lot of the things Mitch said. If you don't know or haven't had something good, you just don't know what is good, because that's all you've seen, that's all you know.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in before me or Glenda weigh in? Anybody else?
Andy?
This is
Banana.
Annette. I would like to say something. I think what Mitch's topic, what he's talking, is a total different topic.
Yeah.
And I listened to him and heard what he say. I understand what he's saying, but what he's saying wasn't prevalent in the
Yeah.
time that I'm a child born in the 50s, and that's not the way it was. Things were conducted. Things were conducted such as, you do what I say do, that type of thing. And grown folk business was grown folk business. Children business was outside, away from grown folk business. So when it came down to the sexual act or sexual knowledge or whatever, you learned it from your friend in the street that learned it from their friend, or that peeped in and saw somebody, you happened to see it, but it wasn't something that your mother, father, or somebody was trying to tell you or teach you what you need to look for when it came to sexual encounters. This was something that you picked up on your own. To think about whether it's long enough or wet enough, man, that was the least of something you even thought about or could have imagined. That's total difference. This is all a whole new. I like this topic. I want to say something. I wasn't online last week, but I did go on YouTube and look at what was said, and I enjoyed it. Man, I was talking to the TV because I'm like saying, I had stuff to say. I'm like, wait a minute. I think this is a very good topic, and I think we should really get into it and talk about it a little more, because like you guys said, there are toys, there are things to do. But John Legend got a song, I love all your your imperfections. Of it is, I mean, none of us, nobody, we're not going to meet the perfect that is going to be right. We all going to have to make adjustments to make it right or comfortable or whatever we need to do, because we're all in learning stages of another person. Sometimes we're afraid, and I'm going to say it, you might know what that person needs to do for you to be able to enjoy it, but you won't open your mouth and say, hey, I need you to do this, or I need you to do that, I want it like this. These are things that we have to learn, that it's okay. We have to give ourselves the grace to say, okay, I can be pleased. I can be a sexual person to I can have sex and enjoy it. That I think it's a lot more to this topic. And what Mitch said, I understand in his category maybe in today's family, because men are trying to be dads, so they're trying to steer and guide and lead, but that's not the way it has always been. I'm done.
Okay, guys. Anybody else want to comment before I say something? Before me and Glenda take back over?
Yeah, let me clear some up. She said
Go ahead, Mitch.
This is why when I came on, when I said was it long enough or wet enough, the thesis is blown apart when you talking about responsibility. That doesn't matter. And again, you prove what I'm saying by saying that you wasn't taught that. Your parents didn't tell you. You wasn't all over the place. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Your parents didn't share that with you. Your friends didn't share that with you. The friends you was around didn't share that with you. But it was shared. My mom had 9 children. Her sister had 9 children. Her brother had 9 children. And we all grew up in the same neighborhood. I don't know if the religions was different that did it, but you women are proving my point. Now, whether it's long enough or wet enough, it doesn't matter. When you start saying love is about responsibility, and it seems like you just has never ever seen it. That's what I'm saying. I'm through.
I got something to say now again. Just
Go ahead,
one time.
Sharon.
Okay. See,
Sharon, go ahead, Sharon.
can y'all hear me?
We
Can
hear
y'all
you
hear
very
me?
well.
Now,
Okay. Now I got something to say on that. Not bickering back and forth or nothing. But I think Mitch is like I agree with Anna. I think Mitch is looking at it from the point of view that that of this day's time. Because back in the 50s, 60s and all that, didn't nobody, and especially in Arkansas, I don't think no parents were telling no kids nothing about no sex.
Okay. All
That's
right,
just
guys.
my opinion.
Let me share this, guys, because right now we're going over. We try to do no more than 50 minutes or 60 minutes. Now our sweet spot is that 30 to 45 minute for this, and we can go an hour. But we're about 8 minutes, about 3 to 8 minutes before it's time for us to end here. But we want to end. But here's what I noticed, guys. And Mitch, I'm glad you came on. Anna, I'm glad you're here, and Sharon, I'm glad you're here. What you guys have brought out is what's called the law of first mention. In relationship training, it's called the law of first mention. And that meant when you first became aware, when you first got your knowledge, whether your knowledge was in church, whether your knowledge was in school, whether your knowledge was in your household, whether it was your mother, your father, or your grandparents, whoever had responsibility of training and rearing you was the people that poured into your heart, into your soul, and where you first learned about love, where you first learned about life. And what you guys have did an excellent job of showing that. And you show what your parents did and what another parents did. So what I want to do is let's take, if Glenda's okay with it, because she's the boss lady, let's carry this conversation into next week to a part 3. And part 3, we'll deal with the law of first mention, where we can show where one generation was taught this way, another generation taught this way, and the parents, based on whether your parents were Catholic, based on whether your parents were Baptist, or based on whether your parents was Jewish, or whatever it was, and how you got your first training, whether it was sex or whether it was about love, responsibility, or what you saw in your parents. Let's talk about that next week as part 3 of this, because you guys have brought some great points. And if you notice, you're on different sides of the spectrum. Not saying that anybody's right, not saying that anybody's wrong. What's saying is this is a place that we can come out and have those dialogues. Because sometimes the things you're taught are excellent things for you and your situation. Some things are situational versus. So let's agree. Glenda, if it's okay with you, can we table the rest of this until next week and we do a part 3? And please, we want you to think about this. And next week, we're going to put a caveat in that we're going to do the law of first mention. Where did you get your training from about this subject as well as life? Because Mitch said something very, very important when he said responsibility. And his love language is responsibility. Where his love language is the man has responsibility for the family to make sure everything was done. And then Sharon shared that her responsibility, her love language was, hey, here's what I was taught, here's where I'm at, and here's my understanding of it. And I'm not saying neither one of you guys are right, neither one of you guys are wrong. What it is what it is. So next week, same place, same time. Glenda, you want to take us out?
Well, all I want to say is that me and Mildred asked for another male's perspective, and I tell you, he showed up and showed
I'm
out.
glad it was good. I just put a comment in the text about it. I'm glad he's
I
here.
know, right?
Amen. Amen.
I just gonna say, Mitch, I don't know where you came from, but I do thank God, and he sure does answer prayers.
Yeah,
I think
Yes.
So don't disappoint Mitch.
So guys, so right now we're gonna sign off. We want to say
Wait.
Who's
Before you go, this is Annette. I just want to tell everybody, do go on YouTube and look at these recaps, because it's very interesting to sit down and look at them, and you'll get a real good understanding on just what we're doing and what we're saying, and you would enjoy it. I'm certain. That's it.
Yes. No,
You can type that.
Glenda, you're not talking. Glenda, we can't hear you, Glenda. Your mic's not talking, Glenda. What? Okay, now I can hear you. Now go ahead.
I said thank you so much for doing my advertisement. I appreciate that.
It is so deserving.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys. Go tune into YouTube. I appreciate that.
And our channel is Reset to Healthy Relationships. Our channel on YouTube is Reset to Healthy Relationships. And everything is under Sunday Night Live. Sunday nights at 9. Everybody, again, great. See you next week. Same topic. We're just going to put a caveat: first learning or first knowledge. We're going to talk about that law and how you learn. And we want Mitch, please come back, Mitch, because we want you to share. We want you to share how you were brought up. And Sharon, please come back. And Annette, come back. So we want to hear how you was brought up. And then
everybody come back.
Yeah, Glenda was share what her first mention of first law of first learning was, and I'll share my law of first learning. And everybody, we should have a great time. See you guys next week, guys.
Take
Same
care.
time. Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody. Enjoy.
Good night.
Good night.